Next up, we're going to hear from Dynatron, and what we're going to be discussing and hearing about is the revenue lifeline, elevating fixed ops in a shifting automotive economy. And we know the economy and the automotive industry is always shifting. To help lead that conversation, please do me a favor. Let's give her a very warm, loud, remember, living room, you have one job, just to be loud. That's the one job, that's it, just one. All right, so let's give her a big, warm, loud round of applause to Maureen Martin, who is the Vice President of Strategic Alliance at Dynatron Software. Maureen, come on up. Stage is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I love it. I see many partners right here. Got Lithia, we got Northwood University. Well, we are just delighted to be here today. We're really about elevating the conversation on fixed operations. And when you really think about what's happening with the tariffs, you look at the slowing car sales, you're looking at the margin compression that's happening on the variable side, we're really having to lean into fixed operations to really stabilize and grow our business. But we know that we're under a lot of pressure. Technician shortages, price increases, and looking at increasing customer expectations. Well, there's nothing better than to have some fantastic dealers that are a part of our panel that have so much experience that they're really going to share with you. And we're going to really delve into a couple of things we'd like to talk about. So I'd first like to introduce our panel to you. To my right is Robert Martinez, and Robert is the owner and manager of the Drive Family First Auto Group. We have to my left, we have Bob Giles, CEO of Giles Automotive and a 2022 Time Magazine Dealer of the Year. And William McCurry. William is the Vice President of Fixed Operations for Del Grand Dealer Group. Most of you know them as DGDG. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here today and sharing your thought leadership with everyone. So I'm going to start with you, Bob. You know, as vehicle sales slow, as we talked about, and margins erode and costs rise, fixed operations, we have to lean into it. So I'm going to ask you, as a CEO of a dealer group, what mind shift change has to happen in the dealerships to really make fixed operations the profitability center and identify revenue leaks and where is it eroding? How do we make that happen today in dealerships?
Well, first of all, fixed ops and fixed coverage is extremely important today with the margins in the front end shrinking. And dealers need to have a way to identify where they have revenue leaking, discounts going on, broken labor op codes. Maybe their parts matrix isn't correct where they're maximizing parts revenue. So all of those areas are important. In our organization, fixed ops is what takes the highs and or the lows out of the car business that we always have, and so it's extremely important. And I think every dealer should focus on parts and service or fixed coverage so that they can always remain profitable no matter what the situation is with the vehicle sales in the front end.
And we really think about it, it takes us starting it from the top of the organization about creating that culture that really embraces fixed operations. And I know you and the Giles Automotive team have definitely done that. William or Robert, would you like to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, kind of just going off what Bob said, I think sometimes we forget how important that part of our business is and looking at it from the same lens as we often do as our finance department, right? So those advisors see more clients on a daily basis, so holding them accountable, giving them the tools and the training to be successful goes a long way in helping us, like Bob says, take out the lows.
Love it.
Yeah, I think I would say, you know, the irony is the symmetry between the two halves. You know, everything that we focus on in the variable department in units and PVR, we're looking at the same things in fixed when we're looking at our row count and when we're looking at gross per our row. And so there's a ton of parallels between the two. And I think for a long time, fixed was an afterthought. And then when you get into the tough times, you know, as Bob alluded to, that's sort of what keeps you afloat and keeps the ship going, you know, in those times when maybe the variable side isn't, you know, at its peak.
And Maureen, I'd like to add that I kind of had a shift in our focus with service advisors about 10 years ago, realizing that we need to treat them just like we do our sales staff. and they're not order takers, okay? We need them to identify customer needs and sell the customer on the needs that they have found on their vehicle and maximize the gross profit on every repair order.
And being able to really see that data to drive those decisions and coaching.
And I think that most dealers would look at the amount of gross profit produced per person, that your advisors produce way more gross profit than any salesperson you have on the floor.
And at a higher margin, I would say.
And at a higher margin. We
Yeah.
love that, right? Erosion margin
Yeah.
has been a very big topic here at NADA. And we really have had the benefit of talking about the uniqueness. And Robert, I'm going to go to you. You are really unique. You started out in fixed operations.
Correct.
You became a managing partner of your dealer group, and then you bought the dealer group. And I find that to be a very unique perspective coming into it. So let's talk a little bit about profit leaks. You know, in fixed operations, sometimes they're obvious and sometimes they're not. In a matter of fact, pricing is one of the most emotional and inconsistent things that happen in dealerships. So when we want to really leverage that fixed operations profitability, where do you see dealers hurting themselves? Do you see them, you know, over discounting, underpricing, lacking pricing discipline at all? Where do you really see those leaks, and how do dealers need to address it?
Well, I think the first area is you have to have a pricing model that fits your market, right? So it's got to be properly vetted. Without that, I think that leads to heavy discounting. And so when you don't understand what your market's going to be able to provide you, the advisors having to justify the benefits of that service often have to discount parts or labor, right? Which then erodes profitability, gross profit. So the good thing about, and not a plug for Dynatron, but there are tools within the system that help you understand that. And so when you see discounting at a large rate, especially let's look at effective labor rate, it hurts gross profit and all the other areas that go with it. So I think first off, you have to have a vetted pricing matrix and market strategy, which will then help you control the discounting.
So it's kind of clearing that data fog, giving some clarity, and being able to really coach your people on it.
Correct.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think I would add training and consistency. You know, to Robert's point, if you know, in the absence of value, price is the issue.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that boils down to properly training your staff on how to communicate the value in the services that you're doing. And then the bigger piece is the consistency across multiple people. You know, depending on the size of the dealership, you could have 2 advisors, you could have 20. And being able to have structure and consistency across all of them is what's going to build the kind of value with your guests that you need to have so that you have long-term retention.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, I think, I don't know the exact number, but I believe it's about 60% of the people after warranty don't come back to the dealer. And so I think retention is very important. So while they're in warranty, while they're coming in for maintenance, we need to be competitive on those items. If we're high on those items, when they out of warranty, they say, hey, it cost me an arm and a leg to do an oil change. I'm not going to go back there for a transmission repair. So that's very important to take that in consideration so that we can retain our customers way beyond the warranty period.
You know, it's really understanding what are like franchise dealerships doing. What is your aftermarket? Because even if you're a large dealer group of 100 stores, every one of those stores has a different market around them, and how we really understand that and really dig into it. Thank you so much for that. So, William, we've talked about technician shortages. We've talked about warranty pressure and rising labor costs. You know, most dealerships are being squeezed operationally. How are we going to help our leaders to understand profitability? You know, is it important for them to understand and dig in, looking at like work mix, a domestic versus an import, understanding by advisor, by technician? Is it okay to just be at that super high level, or do you really need to dig into that visibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, if you're only looking at things from a high level, you die by 1,000 paper cuts, because there's a lot of nuances, you know, in the building. Again, you know, as we talked about, you may have, you know, 10 service advisors, you have 40 technicians, and I think the thing that is important is leveraging technology. So obviously, our organization has a great partnership with Dynatron, and the data that we're able to get is invaluable because you're able to quickly, at a higher level glance, but quickly look at the details, and it enables you, you can't fix what you don't know, and because there's so many moving pieces, it's really critical to understand where you have those gaps or where you have those areas where you're missing out on opportunity. And so really, I think embracing technology, to get that data of how an advisor's performing, like Robert alluded to, if you've got an advisor that's below the benchmark of where you need to be in ELR or whatever metric that you're focusing on, then you have an action item of where you can go back to, how you can coach that individual. At the end of the day, it's not about necessarily doing it wrong, but it's about giving your managers and your leaders in the store an opportunity to go back and coach your team members on the right way to do it so that you have long-term sustained growth.
Yeah, you know what I love about Dynatron is that I'm a data guy, and I got a lot of data dashboard, and it's easy to drill down all the way to the technician and find out where you have leaks going on, where you may have an advisor that has a lower effective labor rate. And it makes it very easy for someone like me or the service director to quickly identify where there's opportunity to improve sales, gross profit, and net profits in the fixed operations department.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, go back to it again. And the data is so important because that's what we use to coach and lead, right? And so giving people an idea of how they can get to a certain level, why there's a certain benchmark, it helps out, right? They have a way to see how they're going to get to the desired results. So it's just data is extremely important, and Dynatron definitely provides it.
So, we talk about that data is power. You're not short on having data. What we're short on is the clarity to be able to take data and make it actionable. A couple of things have come up on the amazing panels we've had in our booth over the last 2 days. Liza Borges from Carter Myers was talking, and she said that for the first time she's got GMs that came up through the fixed ops. But one of the things that stuck out, which seems very simple, but she said we stopped calling or having separate meetings for parts and service. We started calling it fixed operations. And when we bring each other together, we can really have an impact, and we have innovation. So we have partners here from Northwood University, which I've had the privilege to go and speak to their students. We need to get the next generation coming into the automotive industry. So if you were talking to a prospective graduate about why should you come into the automotive industry, and particularly in fixed operations, what might you say to them? William, I'm going to start with you first.
Yeah, I think I would say the thing that I love about this business is that you truly can write your own paycheck. The effort that you put into what you do, the investment that you make in yourself from a training standpoint, honing your craft. Honestly, it's immense. Hearing a little bit about Robert's story, I started off as a lot attendant when I was in college because I needed something to do to make a little bit of money on the side. And if you put the time and effort into it, you can have a very rewarding, successful career in what you're doing. And honestly, if you do it with the right people, it's a ton of fun.
Love it.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And again, I keep going back to the opportunity that exists in parts and service, particularly from an advisor perspective, selling the amount of dollars that they can make in income can oftentimes far exceed what a salesperson on the floor may make. So there's tremendous opportunities in the fixed. And to me, it's a really interesting business with a lot of moving parts, a lot of data that's available, and a lot of opportunity to maximize profits. So I would recommend to anybody thinking about getting in the car industry to definitely consider the fixed operations part of the business.
And it's ever changing, right?
Yeah.
What we think we know today and what's happening today is going to almost definitely change tomorrow. So it almost requires you to become students of your profession. And so if you're not staying abreast of technology or changes in the market, you tend to fall behind. So, and it's a fun business. I am very fortunate that I was asked to be a service manager before I ever learned the front of the house, because it gave me kind of a different look, a different foundation than most.
I celebrated my 40th anniversary in the automotive industry on Tuesday. And I look back on the industry and where we've come in those 40 years, it is so impressive. And where the dealerships are really embracing technology, embracing AI, looking at how do we really help to elevate fixed operations, we have to do it more than ever. And so I am so thankful to this entire panel right here that are sharing with you. They've been very successful dealers and their groups and they're huge community leaders. I was really excited to hear in our booth today, we had Michael Hayes, he's the chair of the Academy for NADA, talking about the partnership with Northwood. And for me, it begins by all of us starting to reach out and to really think about automotive as being a driver for the future. And as we embrace more technology, we need to encourage more with technology. You know, in the old days, there was a part broken and you fixed it and then you replaced it. But one thing is for sure, how we leverage data and how we work together is really going to elevate not only the profitability, but car dealerships are the backbone of every community in this country. And when we do that, we acquire more stores, we put more people into work, and we're a little partial, I would say, obviously at Dynatron about fixed operations, but we know that's the future. And so we thank you for inviting us to be here today to really talk to you. And I want to thank William, Bob, and Robert. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.